Good morning, everybody. We'll be discussing about the topic reflexes, which is part of the basic neurophysiology. The first topic was synapse, where you came to know about the properties, following which you know what is receptor and receptor potential, how an EPSP was developed, resulting in action potential with properties. And the third basic neurophysiology is reflexes. So, how do we go about this? So, the general hierarchical organization of a motor system is from below upwards. The integration or the way in which the motor system gets organized is basically we have spinal cord reflexes, which are rhythmic and automatic, and we have brainstem reflexes, which takes place in the midbrain, pons, and medulla, and forebrain followed with cerebellum and basal ganglia. This is the level in which the motor system gets organized and the level of integration. So, what is a reflex? A reflex is an involuntary stereotypic response, or it is defined as an automatic response produced as a result of application of adequate stimulus, and this is called reflex action. The examples are withdrawal of hand when we touch a hot object, or constriction of pupil when light is thrown into the eye, etc. These are inborn reflexes or unconditioned reflexes. The acquired reflexes are called conditioned reflexes. You all know the basis of integrated neuronal activity is reflex action, and the basic unit of integrated reflex activity is the reflex arc, which is the structural basis of reflex action. It has three components: the afferent limb, the center, and the efferent limb. The afferent limb consists of the sense organ or the receptor, along with the afferent neuron, wherein you can see the sense organ with the afferent neuron forms the sense organ is a receptor, following which we have these generator potential, developed generator potential, which are EPSPs. What do you mean by EPSP? It is excitatory postsynaptic potential. So the receptor is located superficially in the limb or in the viscera or deeply in the muscle or tendon. In the sense organ, it can be concerned with special senses like vision, audition, etc. So when the receptors are stimulated, and if the receptor potential reaches the firing level, they generate impulses in the afferent neuron. The magnitude of receptor potential is proportional to the intensity or strength of stimulus. The impulses in the form of action potential are conveyed to the spinal cord or brain through the afferent neuron or nerve. The efferent neuron enters the spinal cord through the dorsal root, and other afferents from the head and neck region enter the brain through the cranial nerves. So most of the afferent neurons enter through the cell body of the dorsal root, whereas if it is in the head and neck region, it enters the brain through the cranial nerves. The cell body of the afferent neuron is located in the dorsal root ganglion in spinal reflexes, whereas in cranial reflexes, it is located in the ganglia of the cranial nerves. So now the center where the synapse has taken place is constituted by the synapse between the afferent and efferent neuron situated in the brain. It can be situated either in the brain or spinal cord. This center is also called as central integrating station, and it can have one or more synapses. The efferent limb, which has the efferent neuron with the effector organ, consists of the efferent neuron. The efferent neuron conveys impulses from CNS to the periphery, that is to the effector organ. The cell bodies are situated in the ventral horn of the spinal cord, and the impulses are carried through the anterior nerve root. From the brain, the impulses are carried through the cranial nerves from the nuclei of brain, especially the brainstem nuclei from midbrain pons and medulla. The effector organ is either, here you can see the neuromuscular junction is your effector organ, is the muscle or the gland, and effect is generally the contraction of the muscle or secretion from the gland. So most of the time the classification based on, if there is only one synapse, it is called monosynaptic synapse. And if the reflex pathway contains more than two synapses, it is called, if there are only two synapses, it is disynaptic, or if it is more than two, it is called polysynaptic reflexes. The number of the synapses in the reflex arc varies from 2 to many hundreds. In the reflex arc, the activity is modified by summation, occlusion, subliminal fringe effects, and others. So we have a flexor and extensor classification. So for example, the flexor is the withdrawal reflex, and the crossed extensor which happens in the opposite limb in the. So we have both flexor and extensor based on physiological classification. Based on the level of the integrating center, we have what is called as, it can be the cortical reflexes, the midbrain reflexes, the bulbar reflexes, or in the spinal cord, which can be the segmental, where the reflex arc passes through only one segment of the spinal cord, that is the tendon jerk. So the tendon reflexes. The intersegmental is the involvement of the tracts of the spinal cord in different segments, which is a crossed extensor reflex, whereas the suprasegmental, where the reflex arc involves nuclei above the cord and segments of the cord itself. Here the example is attitudinal postural reflexes. So once I told you, it can be inborn or acquired. The unconditioned reflex which we came to know are withdrawal of the hand and light thrown. Unconditioned reflexes, acquired reflexes. So the clinical classification is superficial reflex, deep, visceral, and pathological. The superficial reflexes is elicited from the skin or mucous membrane. Example, the corneal reflex and plantar reflex. The deep reflex is elicited from tendons. When you stroke a tendon, you get a jerk. These are tendon jerks. Or the visceral reflex is elicited from the organs. It can be the defecation, the deglutition, or the micturition reflex. The pathological reflex presents only in abnormal condition, where in upper motor neuron lesion, we call this as Babinski sign, where there is extensor plantar reflexes. So the monosynaptic reflex was stretch reflex, the bisynaptic was inverse stretch and reciprocal innervation, whereas the polysynaptic reflex was withdrawal reflex. So we will be dealing physiologically based on what is the basis of monosynaptic reflex, bisynaptic reflex, and polysynaptic reflex. So monosynaptic reflex or stretch reflex are also called as myotactic reflex. The definition of stretch reflex is whenever a skeletal muscle with an intact nerve supply is stretched, it reflexly contracts. So with an intact nerve supply, when the muscle is stretched, it contracts reflexly. This response is called as stretch reflex. It is the only monosynaptic reflex in the body. So you can see a single synapse between the afferent and the efferent synapsing in the spinal cord. Here, if you see the reflex arc, the way in which it is, the stimulus is stretch of the muscle, The receptor is the muscle spindle, and the afferent neuron is dorsal root cell or the spinal cord. The central forces enter the spinal cord through the posterior root. The center where the spinal cord, alpha motor neuron or the brainstem nucleus will be the afferent nerve synapses. So we have the stretch as the stimulus, the receptor is the muscle spindle, afferent is through the dorsal root, and the center is the spinal cord, alpha motor neuron, and afferent is the axon of the alpha motor neuron, which lifts the spinal cord through the ventral nerve root and supplies the same muscle. So the effector organ is the same muscle that has been stretched. And what is the effect? The contraction of the same muscle. Once again, with an intact nerve supply, when the muscle is stretched, the muscle contracts reflexly. So which is the receptor? The receptor is muscle spindle. So what is muscle spindle? These are the receptors for stretch reflex. They are small spindle shaped structures, 3 to 10 mm long, and they are embryonic in nature. They are constituted by 3 to 10 small muscle fibers enclosed in a connective tissue. These fibers are called as intrafusal fibers. And the regular contractile units of the muscle form the extrafusal fibers. The muscle spindle is spindle shaped, and the ends are, you can see that the ends are attached to the tendon or adjacent extrafusal fibers. The muscle spindle is spindle shaped and the ends are attached to the tendon or extrafusal. They are arranged in parallel to the extrafusal fibers. The number of the muscle spindle in a muscle is proportionate to a degree of precision. For example, in a gastrocnemius muscle, it contains few spindles, while the interossei muscles of the hand contain numerous spindles. So, where is the muscle spindle? It is in the intrafusal fibers. So, we have two types of intrafusal fibers. One is the nuclear bag, and the other one is the nuclear chain fibers. Each muscle spindle will have 2 to 3 nuclear bag and 5 nuclear chain fibers. And the extrafusal fibers are the normal contractile units of the skeletal muscle fibers. You can see in the muscle spindle, the contractile elements are seen only in the peripheral portion of the spindle. The central portion is devoid of the contractile elements. That is, there is no actin and myosin in the central part. There are two types of intrafusal fibers, the nuclear bag fibers and the nuclear chain fibers. The nuclear bag fibers are central bulging, containing many nuclei in the central portion, whereas the nuclear chain fibers are smaller and attached to the nuclear bag fibers. The nuclei are arranged in a chain in the nuclear chain fibers at the center. There is no central bulging. Each muscle spindle contains 2 to 3 or 4 or more 2 to 3 nuclear bag fibers or 4 to 5 nuclear chain fibers. Here we can see what is the sensory supply and the motor supply to the muscle spindle. We can see that the primary afferent is through 1A, that is, it is a rapidly conducting type of afferent fiber. They come and end on the in the spindle and wind around the central portion of the nuclear bag and nuclear chain. It is also called annulospiral endings or primary endings. So the first one is group 1A, which is a rapidly conducting afferent. Then the flower spray endings or the secondary endings are mainly the group 2 fibers. These secondary endings are called as flower spray nerve endings, are mainly seen in the nuclear chain fibers on either side of annulospiral nerve endings. These are type 2 sensory nerve endings. So this so the sensory supply is through group 1A and group 2, whereas the motor supply of this receptor is very exceptional. Unlike any other receptor, the muscle spindle has a motor nerve supply. A unique situation in which the receptor is having a motor supply of its own. Here the motor supply comes from the special neurons in the anterior neuron cells of the spinal cord called as gamma motor neurons. They are small motor neurons, so the dynamic gamma afferent which comes from the anterior horn cell of the spinal cord. They are small motor neurons, the axons of which supply only the muscle spindle. The axons belong to which type? A gamma fiber type, and leave the spinal cord through the anterior root and supply only the peripheral portion of the muscle spindle, causing contraction of peripheral portion only. So the central portion doesn't have the contractile elements. So where does the contraction take place? It's only in the peripheral portion. These gamma afferent endings in the muscle spindle are of two histological type. One is plate endings, another one is trail endings. The plate endings which end on the motor end plate are the nuclear back fibers, whereas the trail ending that form extensive network on the nuclear chain fibers. There is static gamma afferent also. So we have dynamic and static. So here we can see on the plate and the trail. Okay. So there are larger beta motor neurons also innervating both intrafusal and extrafusal fibers. So what is the function of the, so we need to know which is the receptor for stretch reflex, which is a monosynaptic reflex, muscle spindle. So which is made up of intrafusal and extrafusal. Intrafusal are a nuclear bag and nuclear chain fibers. And you should know the motor and sensory nerve supply. So we have sensory through group 1A and group 2 fibers, whereas the gamma afferents come from the anterior nerve root. These are small axons which have two types, the plate ending and trail ending. So we came to know what are the sensory afferents. These are group 1A and group 2 fibers, whereas the gamma motor neurons adjust the sensitivity, which can be both dynamic and static. So what are the functions of the muscle spindle? So here we can see what happens when a muscle spindle is stimulated whenever the muscle is stretched. So stretch is the stimulus for muscle spindle, and the effect is reflex contraction of the skeletal muscles. So you can see how the firing takes place in the nuclear chain and back fibers from the extrafusal and intrafusal fibers. So we have the outside is extrafusal and the middle is the intrafusal fibers. So what are the functions of the muscle spindle? Muscle spindle is stimulated whenever the muscle is stretched. So the stretch is the stimulus for muscle spindle, and the effect is reflex contraction. Whenever a small stretch is applied, immediate contraction is seen only for a short duration. Whereas if a stretch is sustained, contraction of the muscle is prolonged due to a reflex firing of impulses. This is static contraction or sustained contraction. So we have the muscle spindle shows static and dynamic responses. The muscle spindle can respond to the change in the length of the muscle fiber, and also the rate of change in the length. The nuclear back fibers show dynamic response, whereas the nuclear chain fibers show static response. They are stationary, they are slow, whereas dynamic is rapidly adaptive. The back fibers discharge impulses at a frequency proportional to the rate at which the muscle is being stretched. So, depending on the stretch, the discharge is proportional. So, the rate of they fire at impulses where the frequency is proportional, whereas the chain fibers discharge with a frequency proportional to the degree of stretch. So, it is a static response. So, back fibers discharge at a frequency proportional to the rate at which the muscle is being stretched, whereas here in the chain fibers it is to the degree of stretch. So, there is a difference between the rate of and so when the muscle is being stretched, the annulospiral nerve endings of the bag are stimulated, that is the 1A afferent or primary afferent, depending on the rate of stretch. The nuclear chain fibers are stimulated only by sustained stretch. So we have dynamic or static. Static is sustained stretch. The sustained stretch can be analyzed by annulospiral endings and flower spray ending. So here we need to know it senses the muscle length. So we have dynamic activity and static activity. Dynamic activity is mainly by the primary afferents, which is the annulospiral, whereas the static activity is both by the primary and secondary. The information is carried. So once again we can see that what happens when the muscle is stretched and contracted, how the muscle spindle is stimulated, the stretch and the muscle contracts reflexly due to increased gamma afferent. So increased gamma afferent causes stretching of the muscle. So clinically stretch reflex, so discharge of gamma afferent, and so if you need to understand this, the muscle spindle is the receptor of stretch reflex, which is a fundamental reflex to regulate posture. So the rate of gamma afferent is governed by higher centers, which can be both excitatory and inhibitory. These are by two mechanisms, length servo and follow-up servo. So when the muscle spindle is stretched, action potential are set in the sensory fiber proportionate to the degree of stretching. The motor control system in the brain initiates voluntary and involuntary movements. Its neuron discharge simultaneously, almost at the same time, to activate both an alpha and gamma motor neurons in the spinal cord, called as alpha gamma linkage or co-activation. This causes both extrafusal and intrafusal fibers to contract at the same time. If at any moment there is alteration in the length of the muscle, the altered length of the muscle is more than the required during movement, muscle spindle discharge and reflex shortening is produced. Conversely, if the muscle is shortened without a change in gamma afferent, the spindle discharge decreases and the muscle relaxes. So we need to understand that the muscle spindle and its reflex connection constitute a negative feedback device which operate to maintain the muscle length. So we need to, and by second mechanism, first one was about length servo, where there is alpha gamma co-activation. Simultaneously both are causing contraction, that is the extrafusal and intrafusal. The follow-up mechanism acts as regulation of posture by sustained contraction. There is increased gamma afferent discharge along with increased discharge of the alpha motor neuron. This increase in the spindle sensitivity. This increases the spindle sensitivity. Increased alpha motor neuron discharge decreases the pull on the muscle spindle. But muscle spindle is contracting through the gamma motor neuron discharge. This stimulates alpha motor neuron and the muscle contract. Thus, because of the alpha gamma linkage, spindle shortens with the muscle and the spindle discharge may continue throughout the muscle contraction. This is how the spindle remains capable of responding to stretch and reflexively adjusting the motor neuron. So we need to understand there are different factors which control the stretch reflex, which can be facilitatory or inhibitory. The facilitatory reticular formation, the vestibular nucleus, the inhibitory, and fibers from cerebral cortex and cerebellum. There is an inhibitory area. So normally there is a balance between facilitatory and inhibitory impulses converging on the gamma afferent towards inhibition, and stretch reflexes inhibited. The factors which increase gamma afferent are anxiety and unexpected movements. So one of the important significance is whenever if you want the gamma afferent sensitivity to increase, if you are unable to elicit a tendon reflex, then we tend to clench the teeth for upper limb reflexes, or we need to hold the hands together, clasping the hands, resulting what is called as Gendricics manner, where strong voluntary effort with the or we need to hook the fingers to the two hands for the lower limb. So there is reinforcement acting to increase the excitability of the excitability alpha motor neuron, and thereby also increasing the sensitivity of muscle spindle primary sensory nerve endings to stretch, thereby resulting in the gamma afferent drive. So Gendricics maneuver will try to reinforce and increase the gamma sensitivity. So in simple, we need to understand that there are static contraction and dynamic. Static is by the nuclear chain, which is sustained contraction, which regulates the posture, whereas the dynamic is by the nuclear by fibers. So it is mainly the length of the muscle which is being assessed by the muscle spindle. So we need to know role of gamma and alpha gamma co-activation. So how both are activated together and what is the linkage. So what is reciprocal innervation? So clinically the stretch reflexes are elicited by small stretch. All the tendon reflexes like knee jerk, ankle jerk, bicep jerks are all very important. So you all know how a knee jerk is elicited. When you stroke the patellar tendon, the response is contraction of the quadriceps resulting in forward movement. So why is the stretch reflex important? It is because of the sustained stretch through the 1A and 1B two fibers. This is mainly a fundamental reflex which maintains the posture of the body. The gravitational pull is stretching the muscles of the back, body and the neck, leading to sustained contraction. So it is developed in the anti-gravity muscles. The stretch is not the only stimulus for muscle spindle. When the gamma motor neurons are stimulated experimentally, it causes contraction of the muscle spindle, which causes reflex contraction. So we need to understand that if the stretch is applied to a muscle, when the gamma motor neuron activity is more in the body, the force of contraction in the muscle will be greater than the normal. Gamma motor neuron activity increases the sensitivity of the muscle spindle to stretch. Thus, gamma motor plays an important role in maintaining the normal muscle tone. So, we need to see that what is the role of gamma motor neurons. Mainly they damping and they cause alpha gamma. So, we need to understand that exaggerated stretch reflex will be seen if there is increased gamma motor neuron firing, as in upper motor neuron lesion. So the physiological significance is The stretch reflex is responsible for maintaining the muscle tone, and it also maintains posture and equilibrium of the body. What is the clinical importance of stretch reflex? The clinical importance of the stretch reflexes, these deep tendon reflexes are exaggerated in the upper motor neuron lesion. In certain disease, the nervous system where the reflex arc is affected, like poliomyelitis, in lower motor neuron lesion, the jerks are abolished. Whereas in certain neurological conditions like hemiplegia, in upper motor neuron lesion, these tendon jerks are exaggerated. So clinically we should apply how the gamma sensitivity increase by reinforcing using gender 6 manner to elicit the tendon reflexes either by clenching or hooking the hands, or the significance in upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron lesion, how it maintains the muscle tone and posture. So stretch reflex is very important when the intact nerve supply. The muscle is stretched, there is reflex contraction due to the afferents and efferents. So we have alpha neuron, also gamma neuron, which are efferent. So what is reciprocal innervation? That was monosynaptic reflex. If there are two synapses in the bisynaptic reflex pathway, we have an example which can be elicited as by reciprocal innervation to antagonistic muscle. During any movement of the muscle that contracts and brings about the movement is agonist. For example, if you flex the elbow, the biceps are the agonist, whereas the triceps which relaxes is the antagonist. Here, the afferent neuron in reciprocal innervation, the afferent nerve fiber from the agonist muscle entering the spinal cord. It gives a collateral to an inhibitory interneuron which makes the synapse with the alpha motor neuron that supplies the antagonistic muscle. So the afferent nerve from the agonist muscle entering the spinal cord gives a collateral to the inhibitory interneuron which makes synapse with the alpha motor neuron that supplies the antagonist. This is reciprocal innervation, and the interneuron is Golgi-Bottle neuron. So when the muscle is stretched, the motor neuron supplied in a stretched muscle is stimulated and the muscle contracts. At the same time, the collateral from the afferent neuron inhibits the motor neuron supplying the antagonist, for example, through the inhibitory interneuron. This is reciprocal inhibition through reciprocal innervation. So another example is inverse stretch reflex. So when the biceps is contracting through the normal alpha motor neuron, the collateral which has come from the afferent, that is the Golgi-Bottle interneuron, is inhibiting the antagonist and causing relaxation of the triceps. This is applicable in bisynaptic reflex. So the next example of bisynaptic reflex is the inverse stretch reflex. Here if the strong stretch is applied, what is it? When a strong stretch is applied, instead of muscle contraction, there is reflex relaxation of the muscle, and this is referred to as inverse stretch reflex. Here the receptor is Golgi tendon. In monosynaptic, the receptor was muscle spindle, which maintained the muscle length. Here the Golgi tendon organ is the receptor for inverse stretch reflex. Whenever the afferent fibers go to the inhibitory interneuron, you can see the inhibitory interneuron which inhibits the alpha motor neuron, so that the firing from the alpha motor neuron is suppressed. The Golgi tendon acts as a transducer regulating the tension of the muscle force, whereas the muscle spindle is excitatory to muscle tone, whereas the Golgi tendon is inhibitory to muscle tone. The Golgi tendon organ decides the tension in the muscle, whereas the muscle spindle regulates the length of the muscle. So, moderate stretching produces contraction, whereas strong stretch causes relaxation. This sequence can be better studied in cases of hypertonia. So, the bisynaptic reflex includes reciprocal innervation for agonist and antagonist, and the inverse stretch reflex, which is called as the autogenic, which is due to autogenic inhibition, is only when a strong stretch is applied. The Golgi tendon organ, which is inhibitory, suppresses the activity of alpha motor neuron, causing the muscle to relax. So we can have hypertonia and hypotonia. When the tone is increased due to the gamma afferent activity, then it is alpha motor active. So first of all, what is tone? A certain amount of tension present in the resting muscle due to low frequency and asynchronous discharge of gamma motor neuron, which produces resistance of a muscle to stretch. It is a partial steadiness. The basis of muscle tone is stretch reflex. It depends, and it is controlled by higher centers, the facilitatory vestibular and the inhibitory reticular. So we can have both hypotonia, which is flaccid muscle. There is no resistance to stretching in hypotonia. In hypertonia, which is spastic one, in which there is resistance to stretch is very high. So the causes of hypotonia can be destruction of the afferent nerve to the muscle by injury. The hypotonia is poliomyelitis, whereas hypertonia is stimulation of the facilitatory area in the brain or destruction of the inhibitory area. Anything can cause. So it can be two types: spasticity and rigidity. In brain disease which causes increase in muscle tone, if hypertonia is confined to only one group of muscle, it is called as spasticity. However, hypertonia involves both group of muscles, that is extensor and flexors equally. It is referred to as rigidity. So lesion in the internal capsule and UMN, that is upper motor, produces spasticity, whereas basal ganglia lesion produces rigidity. So hypertonia two types: spasticity where only one group, whereas rigidity is both the groups of muscles are involved. So whenever you assess the muscle tone, it is by passive stretch, by eliminating the gravity. So here you are seeing the way in which the muscles are controlling, how the stretch receptor along with different alpha motor neurons with interneurons. So we have excitatory synapse and inhibitory synapse. So whenever you want to study this bisynaptic reaction, bisynaptic reflex, we usually studied with hypertonic cases, that is the patients with UMN lesion. There is something called as clasp knife rigidity is a phenomena seen in upper motor neuron lesion where there is hypertonia. If an hypertonic limb is flexed forcefully, there is initial resistance and suddenly the limb flexes. This is clasp knife rigidity and also called as lengthening reaction. This is due to operation of inverse stretch reflex. When the hypotonic muscle is flexed forcefully, it relaxes due to excessive stretch and gives way, leading to a sudden flexion as compared to the pocket knife or clasp knife. You could have seen when you open a clasp knife, initially there is resistance and later it gives away. That is what is lengthening reaction. The second, which can be used to study the inverse stretch reflex, is your clonus, which are two types: which can be ankle clonus or patellar clonus. So what is clonus? This is regular rhythmic contraction of the skeletal muscle when it is subjected to sudden and it is maintained stretch is called clonus. It is a feature of hypertonia and it is due to increased gamma efferent discharge to the muscle spindle of the hypertonic muscle. In clonus, both stretch reflex and inverse stretch reflex alternate. So we have ankle clonus and you can see and the patellar clonus. Ankle clonus is a neurological sign elicited in the gastrocnemius muscle in hypertonic muscle. When the foot is extended forcefully, there is repeated contraction and relaxation of gastrocnemius muscle as long as the stretch is maintained. This is ankle clonus. Similarly, we have patellar clonus. This is elicited when the patella is pushed downwards, which stretches the quadriceps muscle, leading to repeated contraction and relaxation of quadriceps. Here the inverse stretch reflex is being repeated, and since there is clonic contraction of the muscle, it is called ankle clonus and patellar clonus. When the stretch is removed, the clonus stops. So it is a sign of hypertonia, where you can see how it is. You can see the patellar or the. So what is polysynaptic reflex? If there are more than two synapses in the reflex pathway, it is called polysynaptic, and the commonest example is flexor reflex or withdrawal reflex in response to a painful or a noxious stimuli. Here the effect is flexion of the limb, and so it's called flexor reflex. Here the body tries to move away from the stimulus and it's called withdrawal reflex. So what happens is whenever you touch a hot object, you tend to move away from the body. Thereby you tend to protect yourself. These are called protective reflex. Thereby there is flexor response in one limb and there can be crossed response in the other limb. Here it's mainly because of recruitment of motor units. So the receptor for polysynaptic reflex is the pain receptor of free nerve endings. The afferent is the dorsal root ganglion. Here the center is in the spinal cord. The afferent limb you can see is dividing into a number of branches in a complex pattern. The impulse has to pass through a series of neurons before it reaches the alpha motor neuron, which supplies the flexor muscle. Here the output will be prolonged since there are after discharge and reverberating circuits of the pathway. Reciprocal innervation also can be seen between agonist and antagonistic muscles. So the efferent is the axon of the alpha motor neuron, which is the final common pathway, and the effector organ is the flexor muscle. So what happens is there is contraction of flexor muscle and relaxation of extensor muscle of the same limb. The limb that is stimulated is flexed and withdrawn from the stimulus. Withdrawal reflex is more evident in the limbs, but it is also present in all parts of the body. So there are many synapses existing, which is prolonged due to after discharge and reverberating circuits. So this is the withdrawal reflex. What you are seeing is you have a flexor reflex on the same side and crossed extensor to protect yourself. So withdrawal reflex is it's a polysynaptic reflex occurring due to noxious stimuli. So whenever there is contraction of flexor group of muscles, there is inhibition of extensor. The limb is stimulated, is flexed and withdrawn from the stimulus. This is flexor response or reflex. Whereas when a stronger reflex, in addition to flexor reflex, there occurs extension of the opposite limb. So the opposite limb is extended. This is crossed extensor. What is the mechanism of withdrawal reflex? A strong reflex causes spread of excitatory impulses up and down the spinal cord to more and motor neurons. This is called irradiation of the stimulus and the increase in the number of active motor units, which is called as recruitment of motor units. And this polysynaptic reflex or withdrawal reflexes are prepotent. They are more stronger than other. They block the spinal pathways from any other reflex activity taking place at that moment. So we know the importance of the withdrawal reflex. It maintains the, so we have what is called as local sign. The exact pattern of flexor reflex response depends on the location of the stimuli. If the stimulus is applied on the medial side of the limb, in addition to flexion, there will be abduction. So it depends on the location of the stimulus. If you are applying a stimulus on the medial side of the lower limb, in addition to flexion, there will be abduction of the limb. If the stimulus is applied on the lateral aspect of the limb is flexed and adducted. This dependence of reflex response on the location of the stimulus is called as local sign. As you all know, the withdrawal reflexes are prepotent. That means they are stronger than the others. That means they block the spinal pathways from any other reflex activity. So one more thing, what is crossed extensor reflexes? When the reflex on one side of the body is elicited, it causes opposite effects on the contralateral limb. This is due to irradiation of impulses, and you all know the importance of withdrawal reflexes. It helps in regulation of posture of the body. This can be studied using a spinal animal. That is the above responses. So when you interrupt the influences from higher centers to the spinal cord by sectioning the spinal cord, such an animal is called a spinal animal. In spinal cord, if a stronger stimulus is applied to one of the hind limbs, the following effects are seen. There is flexion of the stimulated hind limb, extension of the opposite hind limb, extension of the ipsilateral forelimb, and flexion of contralateral forelimb. This is called a shifting reaction or forelimb response. Here the impulse is spread to all the forelimbs by irradiation in order to keep the body erect. These effects are elicited in a spinal animal. So we need to understand the importances. It helps in regulation of posture, the withdrawal reflex. To summarize, we came to know what is a reflex, an automatic response to a stimulus which is stereotypic and involuntary, and the basic integral neural activity depends on neural reflex action, and for any reflex action we need what is called a reflex arc. Based on the reflex arc, we are trying to understand whether it is monosynaptic, bisynaptic, monosynaptic, which is based on the stretch reflex, which can be studied with tendon reflexes, whereas the bisynaptic is the reciprocal innervation and inverse stretch reflex, wherein we came to know what is lengthening reaction or the clasp knife rigidity, where the receptor was Golgi tendon, whereas for the monosynaptic the receptor was muscle spindle. And finally we have a very important reflex where many synapses are there. It is forming reverberating circuits, and due to irradiation of impulses we have what is called a flexor response or a Crossed extensor is due to irradiation of impulse, which helps in regulation of posture, which causes local sign, which is due to, that means the response is due to the reflex is dependent on the location of the stimulus. If it is stimulated medially or laterally, there are different ways in which the reflex action is produced. And finally, all the withdrawal reflexes are stronger than the other. So tomorrow's class we will be dealing about what is the properties of reflex and what is the clinical importance. Thank you.